Now, the Tories are horribly divided at the moment, with scores of MPs plotting against their, in my view, underrated leader, Rishi Sunak. But don't be fooled, the Labour Party aren't exactly the Swiss Family Robinson themselves. Angela Rayner, the deputy leader who still has unanswered questions about the sale of her council house, is at odds with her leader, Sir Keir Starmer, about whether Diane Abbott should return to the party. That's the same Diane Abbott who says that Jewish people don't experience racism. Meanwhile, Labour's longtime cheerleader, The Guardian's columnist Owen Jones, has torn up his party membership because Starmer is not as revolutionary as he would like. Labour backbenchers threatened a mutiny over Labour's pro-Israel stance, a major political embarrassment narrowly avoided by Starmer when he reportedly convinced the Speaker of the House of Commons to cancel the vote altogether. The Corbynites on the backbenches, of whom there are many more than Labour would like to admit, and the hardcore lefties out there in the country who are fast-tracked into the party after Ed Miliband's bonkers rule change on membership, are vocally unhappy with Starmer's plans. Starmer out regularly trends on Twitter, and that doesn't bode well. And Labour's more radical ideas are already an accident waiting to happen. Don't take my word for it. New Labour mastermind Peter Mandelson, speaking to the Sunday Times today, has voiced concerns about Labour plans to bolster union power and burden businesses with extra costs and red tape. Mandelson is urging Starmer to move more slowly. And here's why. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to put forward drastic labour market reforms within the first 100 days of winning power. The policy platform being fronted by Angela Rayner, which should be a red flag in itself, would give all workers, that's right, all workers, employment rights from their first day in the job. Now, doesn't that sound lovely? Who would argue with that? But what it means in reality is that businesses could employ someone who's completely useless and be stuck with them. Companies will potentially have to use a 4-stage process, then potentially an employment tribunal if someone was incompetent or even if they didn't turn up to work. Under those circumstances, companies will simply be reluctant to hire people in the first place. And what does that mean? More unemployment. You're welcome. Labour also want to end 0 hours contracts for people who do casual work on unspecified days and for unspecified hours. Like a lot of ideas from Labour, this is well-intentioned. It sounds great, doesn't it? Get rid of 0 hour contracts. But the reality is that many people, including women with families and students, enjoy the informal nature of 0 hours contracts. It's an easy way to pick up a bit of work. I was on them for years. The flexibility is enjoyed by many, which is why so many people take advantage. If companies can't employ people casually, they'll just make do with the staff they've got. And what does that lead to? Yes, more unemployment and more people on benefits in a country that's already broke. And then there are enhanced rights for the trade unions, including 1970s-style collective bargaining. Again, enhanced rights, stronger unions, it sounds lovely, but bear in mind how industrial action has crippled our railways, our health service and other sectors in recent months. And that is before Labour's reforms, which will inevitably lead to more strike chaos, which means disrupted lives and yet more economic damage. Enhanced union power will also lead to more government borrowing as Prime Minister Starmer is forced to grant unaffordable public sector wage settlements, a further consequence of which is inflation. It's all what can only be described as a potential perfect economic storm. But it doesn't stop there. What about the £15 national living wage? An idea that I'm sympathetic to. Of course, it sounds like a good idea, but what is the reality? Well, it will devastate businesses and jobs in sectors like hospitality, retail and social care. They're going to take on fewer people or go bust. I like policies that work, not policies that sound good. Now, I do believe that trade unions are of critical importance. Bosses will always try to rip off their workers, which is why all of the people watching and listening to this programme should have professional support and protection. But it's a fine balance between workers' rights and a fair wage versus crippling businesses. Businesses that generate the national income for this country, that pays for schools, police officers and hospitals. Businesses who do us a great service by actually employing people. The public sector, bankrolled by the taxpayer, is already far too big, with many people doing nonsense jobs like diversity officers in the NHS. We need companies employing people, not the state. But these reforms under Labour threaten to make that less attractive. The Tories are in a chaotic state at the moment. But if so-called chaos means low unemployment, falling inflation, expected lower interest rates and modest economic growth with a government that stands up to the striking unions, well, I'll take that chaos, thank you very much. The alternative is Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who has tried to paint herself as the new Margaret Thatcher this week, except that it was Margaret Thatcher that dismantled the out-of-control unions, not emboldened them. I'm not convinced by Labour's claims of moderation. New Labour, this lot ain't. Keir Starmer is no Tony Blair, a man that I voted for 3 times. And Rachel Reeves is no Margaret Thatcher. In fact, she's more Iron Curtain than Iron Lady.